What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Unplugged and Uncut, the new source for sports news and entertainment. You are live with your boy Unique, and today we're going to break down a blockbuster trade proposal between the Brooklyn Nets, Memphis Grizzlies, Utah Jazz, and the Los Angeles Lakers. We also got mentions of the San Antonio Spurs and Indiana Pacers thrown into this trade because it will be a blockbuster NBA landscape changing type trade. This is actually coming on the heels of Memphis Grizzlies being linked to Kevin Durant. So that's why we put this trade together, and it is a huge trade package. So I'm going to get right into it, guys. We got the Brooklyn Nets receiving Russell Westbrook, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gay. We got the Memphis Grizzlies receiving Kevin Durant. We got the Utah Jazz receiving Steven Adams, Danny Green, Zaire Williams, David Roddy, Santi Alma, Jake LaRavia. And we got also picks going to the Jazz in the form of 3 Memphis first rounders and 2 second rounders. We got the Los Angeles Lakers receiving Kyrie Irving and Joe Harris. Now we're going to break this down and see why the Brooklyn Nets might say yes first. Now I didn't mention the 2 Lakers picks when I said Brooklyn because they have a situation brewing there. And that's why we're going to start with these guys first on why they might say yes. So the obvious reason is they're getting Donovan Mitchell, who is a young star in the NBA and could be the player that you choose to build your team around. Now, the problem the Brooklyn Nets have had with trying to pick up a young star is that they have Ben Simmons on their squad. That's where you see the San Antonio Spurs and the Indiana Pacers come into play here. You can see the Spurs and the Pacers help out with Russell Westbrook and that contract, not to mention those 2 draft picks going to a team like the Spurs. The Spurs have Jakob Poeltl, Josh Richardson, Doug McBuckets, and cap space to help with any type of Westbrook trade. Also, the Pacers have Buddy Hield and Miles Turner to help with any type of trade as well. So you could see the Brooklyn Nets reach out to the Spurs and say, hey, will you take Westbrook? And then ask the Pacers about trading Ben Simmons for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. That type of situation could play out as this trade is going on because they will not be able to pick up a young star like Bam Adebayo or Donovan Mitchell with Ben Simmons on that squad. So that's why we attack the Nets situation first. They have the most pieces to figure out to make this trade work. But if they are able to make it work and figure it out, getting Spider Mitchell back could be big time. Not only do you have a young star to build your team around, you stop your interstate rival, the New York Knicks, from acquiring said player who they are extremely active in talks with trying to get. So you do 2 things there, Brooklyn Nets. You move off of Kevin Durant, who doesn't want to be there. You figure out the Kyrie Irving situation. And the only part that really is a big loss is not getting to see what Ben Simmons could be. Because you think Ben Simmons and Donovan Mitchell, man, that could be a nice combination. But in this situation, they couldn't do that. But the Nets say yes because they get Spider Mitchell. Let's move on to the other teams because they're a little easier to see why they say yes. The Memphis Grizzlies, they go all in. They form their own big 3 with Ja Morant, Kevin Durant, Triple J. Not to mention they keep Dillon Brooks and Desmond Bane. This team, without Kevin Durant, is already one of the fun, exciting young teams to watch in the NBA. These guys are a ton of fun to watch. They're fast-paced, they play defense, they attack both sides of the basketball, and if you add in a MVP-type player like Kevin Durant, who's arguably the best player in the NBA, if not one of the best players, then you've got the makings of a young, exciting championship contender that would be absolute must-see TV. Now, the Grizzlies do lose a lot of young talent and quite a few draft picks. However, their core is so young, I think they could make this trade and still be okay in the future. Ja Morant, Triple J, Dillon Brooks, and Desmond Bane, not to mention Brandon Clark. These are all really young players that'll keep getting better, and they might be in a championship window where they're getting better and winning championships. That could be impressive, so that's why the Grizzlies say yes. The Utah Jazz, they say yes because they got Danny Ainge, and Danny Ainge knows what to do with draft picks. That is right. You give Danny Ainge a bunch of draft picks, you're going to come out with a good squad. And the Jazz are able to pick up 5 more draft picks, 3 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, not to mention they get their hands on some really exciting young talent like David Roddy and Zaire Williams, who could be really good players in this league. Not to mention Steven Adams is not just a throw-in. Danny Green is not just a throw-in for contracts. Steven Adams will bring Danny Ainge another draft asset, either 1 or 2 more first-round picks. Steven Adams is a really good center on a very good contract at $17.9 million. So not only will you get that draft compensation, you quite possibly might be bringing in another young talent to look at. Danny Green, his situation is a little bit more complicated with him being injured right now. However, his contract is really good at only $10 million. He is a 3-and-D player and the type of player that any contending team would want to add, especially when he gets healthy. So let's say he's healthy at the trade deadline, you can move him then. But even if it takes him the whole year to rehab, when he comes back next year, that 3-and-D skill set will still be in high demand, and you can see Danny Ainge strike then to try and get another draft asset. So do not look at Steven Adams and Danny Green as just throw-ins in this trade, Jazz fans. Both of these are really good players that will help you get future assets. Lastly, we got the Los Angeles Lakers. Why they say yes? Well, they just re-signed LeBron James. That's right, the King just re-upped for another 2 years. This goes with that signing and shows the King that the Lakers are all in on win-now type moves. They formed their own big 3 with LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis. Not to mention having a sharpshooter like Joe Harris is big time. I know a lot of Laker fans are going to say they want Seth Curry, but I'm going to break down to you why Joe Harris is a better pickup than Seth Curry if you're a Laker fan or if you're the Lakers GM. Now, once you got Kyrie, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James under contract, because you're going to have to extend Kyrie next year, you really don't have much money to play with to put players around those guys. However, Joe Harris makes $18.6 million. If you combine his contract with a player like THT, who's making $10 million, that becomes a $28 million contract value. And you could go after, in theory, a player like DeMar DeRozan, who's making around that amount of money. This would be the only way that the Lakers would be able to add big-time players to their team. And having a player like Joe Harris, who's a really good three-point shooter and in-demand type player, combine that contract with a THT, now you have $28 to $30 million to go and get a better player, especially when you can't sign players because you're already over the cap. Now, you can re-sign your own players, but you can only do so much when you're over the cap. And having those big contracts like Joe Harris becomes very important and very valuable. Joe Harris's $18.6 million will be expiring. There's a lot of teams that would want that expiring deal to free up that future cap space. So that's why, in my opinion, picking up Joe Harris is a bigger deal than going after a Seth Curry. Now, I understand Seth Curry's a lockdown shooter, but so is Joe Harris, and he can stretch the floor as well. I just feel like if you're a Laker fan or if you're a Laker GM, you got to look at this from a business decision and see the value in that Joe Harris contract. So that's why I bring Joe Harris over here with the Lakers, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. They got their big 3. They show that they go all in. Now, for our 2 honorable mention teams, the Spurs say yes because they would get Westbrook and the 2 Laker picks. Pretty simple there. And the Indiana Pacers, of course, they're saying yes because they're getting Ben Simmons, or again, they might be getting Westbrook and the 2 Laker picks. Both of these teams are in it just to receive draft compensation for their team. That's the only reason I threw the Spurs and the Pacers in there, as they have the cap space and a few players that could help out with that Ben Simmons situation. I can't wait to see what the Nets fans, the Grizzly fans, the Jazz fans, and the Laker fans have to say about the meat and gravy of this trade. Spurs fans, Pacers fans, sound off. Do y'all like being added into this trade? Being the teams that could be almost like the broker, the teams with the cap space helping everybody out, just reeling in draft compensation or a player that they might want to look at? Let me know in the comments. Can't wait to see what everybody says. Before I get out of here, we're gonna be giving away a ton of NBA swag. And all you gotta do to be entered to win is leave comments in the comment section and be an active subscriber. But that's all we got for this part of the episode. And your boy is out. Peace.